My friend and I wanted to get a game each for a game night. We went into the game shop at the mall and browsed their selections. Sasha picked up a deck of cards and I joked about getting the Ouija board we passed by. She told me to get it, so I did. We decided to wait until her daughter was fast asleep later that night. We did some prepping based off of some information we found on a Wiccan website. We turned off all the lights and lit up some candles. We sat Indian style, imagined a safe bubble around us before we began along with the other steps. We then invited any positive energies to speak with us. I didn't have any expectations for this thing because I literally got it from a game shop in a mall. We both put the tips of our fingers lightly on the planchette and began making circles with the board. I asked the first question, "Is anyone here with us?" No answer. More circles and repeated the question. Yet again, no answer. By the fourth time we asked the question, the planchette moved. I felt a small fissure of energy. It was like a soothing, low vibration, and then the planchette moved to yes. The following question was, "Are you a good entity?" It responded yes. It was a female energy who tried to give us a message for her daughter. After she stopped responding, we continued with the game. We met someone else. I asked for my birthday, and the entity got the month and day right, but was off by one for the year. These entities were fine and wanted to communicate. It got emotional when my friend's grandma came through. She was able to ask questions I had no knowledge of to validate the experience for her. What validated the experience for me was when I asked her grandma a question in my head and the planchette moved in response automatically. When that happened, my friend looked up at me as if she knew what I did. Eventually, her grandma told us she was getting tired and had to go. Before we knew it, she was gone. Things were just about to get even more interesting. We circled the board and asked, "Is anyone here?" We got a yes. I proceeded, "Are you a positive entity?" It responded no. We said goodbye, and the planchette went to no. Once again said goodbye, then the planchette started to go in circles on the board. My friend and I looked at each other. I lifted my fingers slightly so that the tip of my nail was the only thing touching the planchette. My friend removed all but one finger on the planchette, and it went to no again. At this point, I was done. I lifted up the planchette and slammed it down and placed it on goodbye. It didn't move from there. Sasha got up and turned on the lights. I blew out the candles, then grabbed the box off the table. Sasha went to check on her daughter, then came out the room and asked, "Hey, did you open the blinds?" The blinds were pulled all the way up. The entire room was exposed. I walked in the room confused and pulled the blinds back down. By the time we went back into the living room, those blinds were also pulled all the way up. We definitely closed them before starting. We looked at each other. I went to the Ouija board, and the planchette was on no. I bent down to pack it up. Before my fingers made contact with the planchette, it moved about 2 inches away. Sasha then bent down and grabbed everything and placed it in the box. We didn't talk about it that night, and it was getting late, so I left. I had an uneasy feeling as I headed home, but I was probably anxious from the experience. Sasha and I haven't seen each other or spoken for about a week after playing that game. My week went by easy without hiccups. One morning I went out to my car and the Ouija board was sitting on top of it. I left it at Sasha's that night we played. I tried to call her, she didn't answer. I sent her a text and she never responded to my text. Later that night, I called again and still no answer. I put the board in my closet and basically ignored the thing. The following day was a Saturday, so I headed over to Sasha's in the afternoon to check up on her because she never contacted me back. She answered the door, and I said, "Hey, I've been trying to call you." She let me in and informed me how her electronics have not been acting right since the night of the game. Inside her home, she received no signals, and the TV would go out after a few minutes of being turned on. The blinds was never how she left them, and the lights would cut off after she walked away from them. My friend looked tired, but I had to see for myself. True as she mentioned, she didn't have any cell phone signal, and I didn't have any either. She sat down, and I walked to her light switch and flipped it on. I stood there, and nothing happened. She looked at me with haunted eyes, shrugged her shoulders, then looked down. I waited, and still nothing. I smiled, walked away, and grabbed the remote and turned the TV on. Everything was fine. I walked over and sat on the table, and we began having conversation about her constant nightmares, her daughters refusing to sleep in her own room, things not being where she put them. As she was telling me about her experiences, she began rubbing her temples. We spoke for nearly 30 minutes or more, and I didn't experience anything with her. She asked me if I could stay a while as she took a nap. I felt bad, and I said sure. Once she mentioned how bad her headache was getting, I began to hear a strange buzzing. It was not like a bee. It was very faint but steady. Sasha laid on the couch. I looked at her for a bit, moved to the armchair, and started browsing the channels. After some time of sitting there, I swore I saw something from the corner of my eye, but I didn't put much into it. It happened a few more times before I decided to have a staring contest, facing the general area. I turned away only when the TV suddenly turned off. I tried to turn it back on, and it wouldn't. Suddenly, the light bulbs and the lamps exploded one by one, then the kitchen, and then I heard more in the other rooms. I jumped up off the chair, called out to Sasha, and she didn't move. I rushed to her and shook her woke. She was quite groggy coming to, but I was in panic mode. I grabbed her arm, practically dragging her off the couch. "We have to leave." I didn't rush to the door because that's where I kept getting the glimpses of something. I looked to the counter to grab my keys, but they weren't there. I turned full circles and nothing. Sasha was standing, staring into the bathroom sleepily. She stood there the entire time I searched for my keys. "Sasha!" I shouted. She looked at me slowly, then lifted her hands with my keys in them. Sasha never moved from that one spot. She was nowhere near the counter where I left my keys after she woke. For some reason, I turned to look into the bathroom, and a dark shadow without shape was there. Sasha dropped the hand holding my keys and turned to head back to the couch. I yanked my keys from her hand and ran for the door and left. Long story short, I burned the heck out of the Ouija board when I got home and called a mutual friend about Sasha. According to the friend, Sasha had no recollection of me being there, and the only proof I had were the experiences she had, and I somehow knew of them.